Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Facebook Live world. Vince Vigneri back with you again this week. This time I have one of our other co-authors, Russ Sawdon, who I saw just sharing the live on his page. I'm going to do the same. And so we'll welcome all of you and we'll give you a moment to join us. We'll give everybody just a quick time. It's the earlier morning hours here in the US, Russ. I know it's like mid-afternoon or so, not quite early afternoon for you.
2 p.m.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, again, we'll give our listeners, our loyal listeners and watchers a moment to join us, and then we will dive right in. I'm excited to have you with us today, as I'm sure you know, but one thing that both Russ and I have joked about is, you know, some of these have been 30, 45 minutes. You don't know with this one. Russ and I have been together before, and we like to chat. So you never know. This one could be a longer one. No pressure, Russ.
I talked for 12 hours straight at a sponsored event a few weeks ago, as you well know. So, I mean, I'm good.
12 hours. I don't quite have that much time today, my friend.
Okay.
All right.
But
so
let's see.
Somewhere between 30 minutes and 12 hours, we should be good.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to share to my page and then I will be ready to go. All right. Once again, welcome Facebook Live world. Vince Vigneri, one of your co-authors of the book ENTRE-Preneur-Ship, along with another of my co-authors, Russ Sawdon, coming from the UK. Russ, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm still not sure I believe that I'm a co-author. So well, that's still a bit surreal.
It's real, dude. I've got my copy of the book right here. It's real. It's on Amazon. It's selling. We've sold, pre-launch a lot, and now it's actually selling on Amazon. How cool is that to say?
It's like a proper book.
It's like a real thing.
A real proper book. And the exciting thing is it's one in a trilogy. So there's so much more to come.
It is. We've obviously mentioned that. So those of you that are, not new to our author interviews know that this is part of a trilogy, as Russ just pointed out. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, Russ. I should give you a proper introduction. And so with that, again, I'd like to welcome Russ Sawdon. We talk about how in the book that sometimes people are able to come together one at a time. And I've known Russ for a number of years. And along with he and I, 8 others have co-authored this first in a trilogy, as Russ pointed out, called ENTRE-Preneur-Ship. And this one's really focusing in on what we wish we would have known when we first got into the business world. With me today, as I mentioned, Russ Sawdon. Russ always makes a difference because of his passion for helping and supporting others in all areas of life and business. One of my favorite memories of Russ is when he stood up at the back of a room and said, "Give me your vote, because I want to take care of the guy in the back of the room, because I was once that guy in the back of the room." It has always sat with me. It always is a great memory. Russ, good morning to you. Good afternoon to you in the UK. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Vince. Good morning.
Well, let's jump right in, Russ. Your story is really hand in hand with this entire book, because it's with a little help from friends, and that's how this book started. I'm sure that's no surprise to anybody that's listening to us today. A group of friends came together, holy mackerel, 14 months ago, and here we are. This pandemic thing as it was starting. Who knew how long it was going to be, how long it was going to last? Here we are 14 months later. We've written and authored a book, and we're working on number 2 and number 3. Russ, what do you want to tell our listeners today about your chapter without reading the whole thing to them? What do you want them to take away today?
Yeah, I mean, my chapter of the book is focusing very much on what my first real business journey was. And that was opening a flower shop, a floristry business in the UK. And in my section of the book, I give 16 tips, bits of advice on things that I start the chapter by saying I wouldn't go back and change anything, but I wish I'd gone into it with this information.
Sure.
And so there's 16 different bits of tips and advice that if you're starting a business, or you're in the early phases of having a business, or you have an established business and you want to take it to the next level, these are 16 things that would work really well for you growing your business.
So on top of the fact that this book that we've written has 10 stories, from all of our different perspectives, or each of our different perspectives, you've now gone and given 16 tips in your chapter. So give us a couple of those tips, not all of them. We want people obviously to read the book, but give us some of your most memorable, a couple of those.
So the one that really stands out is that customer service has to be world class if you want to stand out in the sector that you're in. And in the book, I tell a story about a customer that came into the shop and he wanted to buy a bouquet of flowers for his mom. He was from out of the area. He was traveling back home, and he said, listen, take these round to, let's call her Mary. Take these round to Mary in the village where the shop was, or still is to this day. She likes carnations, lilies, this, and he picked this stuff out. And he picked a value selection, is probably the best way to describe it. And I knew this lady, and I'm thinking, she doesn't like these things. And I said, look, you may need to spend a little bit more. And he went, no, that's fine. I know she likes them. She's my mom. She knows. So he went and headed off back down south, and we delivered the flowers. And half an hour after the flowers were delivered, Mary came into the shop and threw the flowers on the counter and said, these are disgraceful. You've ripped my son off. There's no way he would have sent me these. He knows I don't like these. Now, there's 2 ways that we could have gone with that. One is, no, I'm sorry, that's what he ordered. But what I decided to do was exceed everybody's expectations. And this was an everyday occurrence. I said to her, pick the flowers that you like. And we picked them off the flower stand and we put them together and I wrapped them up and she went away with them. And I remember my mom, who worked for me at the time, said, Tina said, what are you doing? You're going to make us bankrupt because you've just given her 40, 50 pounds worth of flowers and, we're now out of pocket. And I said, yeah, but she's happy and she'll tell lots of people. But not only that, I phoned her son and I said, listen, there's been a problem with the flowers we sent to your mom. And he went, oh my goodness, oh no, I'm on the way back. And I went, no, it's fine. We've sorted it. I've given her a selection that was about 40 pounds. And he went, okay. And he wasn't going to offer me the money. And I said, listen, what's your home address? I'd like to send you something to apologize. And by the way, because we didn't exceed your expectation, I've refunded your 20 pounds back onto your card. So that's free of charge. That's on us. So not only had he not paid for them, we'd given 40 pounds of the flowers. I sent him a 30 pounds bouquet to his home address for him arriving home to say, I'm sorry that we messed up your order. Now, that's crazy, right? That's crazy. From a business point of view, that's crazy.
Yes, agreed.
But where would you get the marketing impact of a 70, 80 pound item? It would have cost me more to take an advert out in a newspaper or to run some social media posts. And that was something we did on a regular basis. And we exceeded people's expectations. It's something that I've always aimed to do in every business that I've been involved in since then, is what do people expect? Let's just get above that. Let's get above that bar. And I would advise entrepreneurs out there to do exactly the same thing, because people will always try and compete with you on price. They can't compete with world-class customer service. It's just not possible.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, from days of doing facilitation and training, we always are telling people, you can't just say, I provide good customer service, because anybody can say it. You truly are living it, and the action speaks so much greater. Now, Russ, I got to tell you, we've got a comment already on Facebook Live that I need to read to our audience.
Is it appropriate?
It is, actually. And when I tell you who it's from, you'll be even more shocked that it's appropriate. But this comes from a friend of ours, Dan Kelly, said, I know, see, you're already worried. To be fair, I've recently read Russ's chapter, and even though I've ran businesses for many years, I took away a couple of very pertinent points that I'm immediately putting into action. Cheers, Russ. And, that from a gentleman that we both know. And, as he mentions, years in business, he was even able to take a couple of things away. That tells you the scope of readership for this book.
Yeah, and the thing with Dan Kelly is, we both met in an organization called BNI, and Dan is an executive director in that organization, and he was somebody that I looked up to and still do to this day. His standards were so high. He cares so much about his customers in all the businesses that he's involved in, and he's always been involved in. So for Dan to take something from my book, my section of the book, I'm really humbled by that, because that's exactly what we wrote the book for, Vince, right?
Exactly.
That's
spot on.
I'm just really excited that people are getting something from it, because to me and you, right, it's just our thoughts and our journey to other people. It's inspiring them, and that is quite a surreal feeling. Quite a surreal. So thanks, Dan. Thank you for keeping it clean.
Well, and thanks, Dan, for watching this morning. And yes, as you mentioned, when I saw who it was from, and I decided I was going to read it, I thought I got to be really careful with this one, because Russ might be worried when I say Dan Kelly wrote something. But now I have to pick on Dan a little bit as he's on here, because I have like 14 posts in a row that Dan Kelly is watching. So I'm not sure what's going on, if he can't figure out how to stay on Facebook Live or what, but maybe Dan will tell us what's going on. So speaking of learning things, Russ, I'm going to skip ahead a question and ask you, what did you learn from being an author with 9 others?
Never work with friends. No. I don't.
Wait. Your chapter is with a little help from friends. Come on now.
Well, here's the thing. I would never have dreamt of reading a book. I'd never have dreamt of reading a book. I would never have dreamt of writing a book if my friends hadn't encouraged me to write a book. So, the name of the chapter doesn't necessarily allude to the content. What it alludes to is it wouldn't have happened without those friends. And when you get 10 highly talented, 9 highly talented, and then me. The big joke in our group is that I'm English and I'm the only native English speaker that doesn't speak English. That's the big joke. It's Scottish English, I get told, Scottish English. So Russ, when are you getting your book translated? The thing for me is that, from the beginning, from us having this, we should write a book, to it actually now being on Amazon, it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't supported each other in doing that. Now, we've been on those calls, Vince, where 10 people have 10 different opinions and 10 different passionate opinions on how something should go. And I've got to say that 9 out of 10 of those times, we're all on the same page. We just approach it from a different way. And that is unique, to find 10 people, 10 different upbringings, 10 different industries, 10 different countries, 10 different ages and demographics that have come together, have such a tight international friendship. It's unique. We've said this on many an occasion. We've never heard of this before. I've never come across a book that's written by this diverse range of authors and comes together as such a very clever piece of work.
I couldn't agree with you more. It was something, I will say, writing a book was something that I had thought about. I had never penciled it out, I'm going to do it. And, if it hadn't been for the 9 others, I know personally speaking, I wouldn't have gotten there. You all pushed me to get it done and to tell my story. And, you know, it's nothing that I haven't told before in some cases, but I've never written it out and told it and added to, you know, some of the specifics as to what happened. But I do have to comment, you know, you and I joke a lot about being the native English speakers, and I always give you a hard time that, you know, you don't even speak English because you're from the north of England, and as you pointed out, Scottish
North,
English. I
not
just
north
want
of
to
the wall,
remind
almost
I,
north of the wall.
I just want to remind everybody though that what language the book was first
Ah,
written in as it's translated to other languages. It was English, US English.
here's the thing, guys. We had a meeting where we had a discussion, and it was, is it going to be published in English or American English? And I put across this really passionate, we don't call it English, it's English. It kind of started in England, and being English, for me, the book should be written in English. And everybody listened really patiently, and then all said, yeah, it's going to be American English. So I just feel that sometimes my opinions aren't valued, Vince.
I didn't even have to make a compelling argument. It was just like everybody else was like, no, American English. And I'm like,
Yep. Yeah.
And then I jumped on the bandwagon and giving you a hard time that you didn't even speak English. So
I even had family members getting in touch with me and saying, Russ, this has got a Z where it should have an S, and why is there a U? Why isn't the U in that word? And what I lost the rock paper scissors on whether it should be English or American English. Never mind.
Well, we've talked about what we've learned, and of course that was a learning experience as well, right, Russ?
Yeah, I learned not to get upset when you don't get your own way.
Well, some others could learn that as well, I'm sure. So there's another good takeaway. We might have to write about that in the next book. Speaking of the next book, what are you most looking forward to with book 2 and book 3?
The continuation of these journeys and these stories, and we all of the authors have taken it in a slightly different route. So Antonio's was very much from being a child and how he came to get to adult life and how he started out. For me, it was my first business. You know, for everybody's approached it a slightly different way, and I'm really, really excited to start reading these drafts as they're coming in now of the second book to see how people have continued those journeys and those stories.
I just had the opportunity over the weekend to read the first draft of Paulo's, and you know, again, as you mentioned, very interesting how you build that next chapter in that next book. And so, yeah, I actually found myself having to go back and reread his first chapter just because they are really self-sufficient chapters. And that's the nice thing about the book, the way we have it written. It's 10 stories. It's not all of us writing and trying to figure what goes here, what goes there, what kind of order it's in. It's 10 stories. And in this case, we're going to keep it that way for book 2 and book 3. So tell me, Russ, what was the best part of working? I asked what you learned, but what was the best part of working with 9 global partners?
It's very rare that I look forward to a business call as much as I looked forward to our calls. It truly was 10 friends coming together. And, you know, we've laughed so hard that we've cried on those calls, you know, and, you know, we poke fun at each other. But, you know, we're there for each other every time that we need something, whether it's speaking in somebody else's region at a business event or something, or we drop everything and we go and help each other. And, you know, it feels like we've all been friends for life. It doesn't feel like some of us have only known each other for 4 or 5 years, but and to be honest, Vince, in some cases only saw each other once a year.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, until recent years, that's really more recently, pre-2020, was really when we got to spend a couple of times together instead of just once a year. And that definitely, I would say, helped strengthen we had friendships, but it helped strengthen that, especially as March 2020 hit the calendar, and we didn't know what was, happening. We didn't know how long it was going to last. In some cases, it's far from over. I mean, we talk about what's going on with Bharat in India right now, and obviously that's kind of the worst case scenario presently. But we've all had some moments like that. Of course, you have in the UK, Vera has in Italy, and it all started with Vera and her lockdown, that we all came together to say, how can we help you? What do we need to know when we get to that? And it was literally within a matter of days or maybe a week that we were all faced with the same thing, essentially, back in March of 2020. And here we are, May of 2021, 14 months.
Yeah,
I guess you can say, and counting. If Mark were here, I know that's what he'd remind us of. It's not over yet.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and it was how we all accepted that and how it hit us really hard. I was all set to come to Denver at the beginning of March. I was like, I'm still coming to Denver. I'm still coming. And it wasn't until I watched more news stories and saw borders closed that I thought, yeah, maybe I shouldn't go to Denver. But here we are now, in a year where lots of people will reflect on, my year's been on hold. In that year, we've come together, we've written a book, we're planning the second one. I've started 3 or 4 businesses. I've started doing podcasts. All this opportunity has grown out of a year where we've had to pivot how we think about life and business. And hopefully that positivity and that aspiration will come through in the book when people are reading it.
Well, they talk in economics about lost opportunity cost. If I do X, I can't do Y. Well, in our case, it was really found opportunity. We couldn't do X. Heck, we couldn't do A through Y, really. So we were able to do Z. And that's, to me,
it's Z.
Yes, I knew, as I said it, I knew you were going to say Z. But we were able to do something. And part of the reason we were able to do it was because there were a lot of other things we couldn't do. We couldn't travel to Denver. We couldn't travel to Miami. We couldn't travel. We were supposed to travel to Greece.
And Paris as well.
And Paris. Yeah, I'm like, I can't remember where else. So
it was going to be a year of amazing global travel. We were going to meet up 4 or 5 times. It was going to be fantastic. And instead, we met up twice a week on Zoom.
Right here. On Zoom.
Right here. Yeah. And it was crazy because for me, our Saturday best friend calls would be 1 o'clock on a Saturday. And I'd go and do the weekly shopping. I'd walk the dog that I didn't want, that I now walk twice a day. And I would sit down with my lunch and a glass of wine at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and get on our call and have a giggle. And quite often we'd plan an hour's call, and 2.5 hours later, we would still, for you, it was early in the morning. I remember for you, it was like 7 in the morning or something.
7 in the morning. Yep.
And I remember one week you were there with a Bloody Mary.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, that's a great way to start the day. But you've done your exercise already, so.
I kept watching everybody with their glasses of wine, and I said, you know what? I'm coming with a Bloody Mary next week. And I did.
I felt really European because in Europe, it's not unusual. In continental Europe, it's not unusual to have a glass of wine with your lunch, and so I'd find myself having olives and European cheeses and different European wines, just so I felt that I was at one with our European colleagues.
I get it. I understand. Yeah. That was my thing. I'm like, wow, it's a little early to have wine 7 a.m. But hey, Bloody Mary, it's never too early for that.
Well, I treat it as airport rules. It was an international zone. So anything goes, right?
Well, as you mentioned, we'd plan for an hour and we'd spend 2.5 hours. And I don't know about you, sometimes my wife would be like, are you going to do anything with the family today? Granted, it was 9 o'clock in the morning and they had barely gotten up on a Saturday morning. But
imagine that being 1 till like 3, half 3, right in the middle of the day. And it's like, are we going out? We're going to go for a walk? I'm like, yeah, I'm just on a call. It's a business call.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound much like a business call.
Russ, I hate to tell you this, but we got another question, and it came from Dan again.
Oh.
He asked, are all entrepreneurs drinkers?
I don't know how to answer that. I think you'd have to ask the entrepreneurs.
I think it depends on the entrepreneur, but I think your point really, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I misheard it, but what I recall was you said all the Europeans were having wine, so I guess all Europeans are drinkers.
And well, what I will say is that all of the ENTRE-Preneur-Ship authors like to drink together.
Yes.
And I just remind you of our trip to Munich, and a lot of people discovered Drambuie for the first time. It was
yes.
We arrived in the bar, and I had to say to the bar staff, "That's only half a bottle of Drambuie. Can you get another couple of bottles in?" And they were like, "We never sell Drambuie." I said, "You will."
You will.
Sure enough, we drank 3 bottles over the few nights that we were there. So yeah,
and there were a few more than 10 of us that were helping with that for our listeners, but not many.
Yeah, and also we went to the Spring Beer Festival in Munich, and and to be honest, Dan shared a post on Facebook the other day of him, Peter Higgs, and myself with unicorn horns on, and that was a great evening. Yeah. So
it looks like Mark Graber joined us and remind us of our time in Dublin as well, and we might have had a few Guinness in Dublin together.
That is true. Although, and this is the interesting thing, because we were all friends at that time, but I didn't really come out much into Dublin. I was I had work duties that I needed to take care of, and I felt a little bit like the kid that was in detention, watching all of his friends playing in the playground. So I was looking at it. Yeah, well, I was on our WhatsApp group and seeing all these pictures of "Hi, Russ, we're in Dublin," and it was, it was that was a great conference.
Well, our friend Paolo just mentioned that he says you learned the origin of Drambuie. I guess I thought that you shared the origin of Drambuie. I don't remember that exactly. So who learned the origin of Drambuie? Was it Paolo or was it you?
It must be Paolo. I don't know the origin of Drambuie. Does he mean the origin of how Drambuie entered our group, or the origin of the drink?
Well, we'll see. We'll see if he responds. But Russ, while we're waiting to see if he responds, we're moving towards the wrap-up section of our time together. So any final words about your chapter, about the other authors, about this book that you want to share before I ask you the favorite question that everyone loves to answer?
So what I would say is, if you're listening to this either live or later on Facebook, each of our authors has a different background. Mark Graber, education. Antonio, technical programming. We've got Edgar through law, and so on and so forth. I would pick an author and/or an industry or a country and read that first. You don't have to read it chapter 1 to chapter 10. You don't have to do it that way. They're not stories that lead on one to another. And I think all of the chapters are brilliant, but I think if you pick a chapter that you think will resonate with you, then you'll be compelled to read the other chapters. Because these stories are told in Technicolor. They're very, very cleverly written. Not only did 10 friends come together to write a book, as it turns out, 10 talented authors came together to write a book. And listen, we were lucky to have Paolo and Bharat, who've already written books before, and they kept us very focused. And, Bharat sometimes too focused. Are you joking me?
Your Antonio almost came out there.
Oh, yeah, it's maybe not appropriate.
Not on Facebook Live.
It's not appropriate for he gets really close to the screen like that when he's passionate. So pick a chapter for, so listen, Jan, import, export, and wholesale and stuff like that. Pick a chapter that you think, that one really interests me, and read that one first, and then pick another and pick another. Just make sure you read all 10 because they're all brilliant.
Yeah, I know. And of course, some of us might say that the best was saved for last, but I know I lost the discussion of how we were going to put them in by alphabet. And no matter how we cut it, I think I was last. So it really didn't matter if it was first name or last name. Vigneri was coming at the end.
Yeah, you were always going to lose that one.
Yes, I was. But you know what? It's still written in American English. So, Bharat pointed it out, I believe, in our very first interview, where, there's 10 stories and a different one is going to resonate with you at a different time. So that's another reason, go read one, find the person that you know the best or the country that you're from or resonate with, but you're gonna want to read the others. And maybe if it's not all at once, it's going to be at some point in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Paulo's response was that he told you the origin of Drambuie, about the bees.
Yeah, he told me about bees making love, but I never believe what Paulo says. So it wasn't something that really, and don't forget, Paulo, we were quite a lot of drinks in at that point, and I'm getting on, my friend. So for me to remember that without a prompt is asking a lot.
Well, you got your prompt. He squared us away, and
I seem to remember, Vince. I seem to remember that he tried to tell me it about 3 or 4 times as well, and I kept losing focus, which isn't like me at all.
Not at all. Squirrel.
Yeah, all the time.
We've got another comment from Dan, and it's still clean, so this is good. Love these interviews, great energy, and your experiences with each other have given us a great book. Well done, guys. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. Russ, we've reached the final question today. What is or was your favorite chapter?
Well, we were on a call earlier on today, and Jan de Vactor said, don't forget that when you're asked which is your favorite chapter, it's Jan's chapter. And, there are 2 chapters that really, really, I personally took something from. And one of them was Jan's chapter. And I think for us as friends, we know each other in the now, but we don't know each other's origin stories. And so every chapter was, I'm giving a politician's answer. Can you tell, Vince? Every chapter was amazing, absolutely amazing in learning how we've become the people that we have. And Jan's chapter was amazing because mine is very much about retail and the retail sector, and his was very much about wholesale and import and export. So from a business point of view, I found that very helpful and very interesting. But I've got to say, Antonio's chapter was just written exquisitely in terms of his relationship with his father. And I mean, I knew he was clever. We call him the professor, right? I knew he was clever, but to be coding at the level he was coding at such a young age was just absolutely mind-blowing for me. And, I learned recently that in some of the tech countries that are very well known for tech these days, like Estonia, Romania, even Russia, China, that children have to pick at least 3 languages at school. Yeah, one of them is their native tongue. The other one will be quite often English, but English. The other one is a programming language, computer programming language, because the people that can code and can write, that's the future, right? So Antonio is somebody I'm going to stay very close to because that guy is just so clever and genius. So I would have to lean with Antonio's chapter. I'm sorry to the rest of my authors, including yourself, Vince. So sorry.
Well, this interview is done now. Thank you very much.
Well, Mark Graeber was the smooth one, wasn't he? When he said, it's got to be yours, Vinny.
That's right. I pay him better than I pay you, but that is what it is.
Can I just leave people with a story?
Sure.
So Vince and I have a very interesting relationship because he's very patient with me. And when we were setting up payment gateways for the book, for the pre-launch, we were on a call together, and I'm not technically gifted and I'm a bit numerically dyslexic. So I have a different relationship with numbers, and that ties in with I'm scared of tech and things like that. And we're gonna use PayPal not a problem. I use PayPal. I don't use PayPal. Yeah, you just create a button and then you just import this, and then it creates a QR code, and then you do this. And Vince could see me slowly panicking on the call. And I had what is best described as a toddler's meltdown. Yeah. This is ridiculous. I can't use PayPal. And Vince just really calmly said, Russ, let's get on a call. I'll talk you through it and I'll help you and we'll set it up. Now, he did set it up, but all of the book sales that I made appeared in an account in America. I just don't know how that happened.
English. It was all about American English, my friend.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
Well, Russ, I thank you very much for your time today. I cannot let you go, though, without reminding our listeners that next week, I am lucky enough to have the most beautiful of the 10 authors with me.
Am I back on?
You're not, dude. It's our little sister, Vera. Let's not forget about her. She will be joining me next week, Wednesday, May the 26th at noon Eastern time. 11 a.m. Central. You'll need to adjust accordingly. Again, there's an event on our Facebook page, noon Eastern time, next week, Wednesday, May the 26th. We'll have our little sister with us, and she brings a lot of emotion and love and care to our group. And sometimes she definitely is the glue that holds the other 9 together. So I'm looking very much forward to that, to hearing her talk about her chapter, which is chapter 9, story number 9. You are the creator of your reality. And one final reminder for all of our listeners, we are gearing up for something big in August. August 21st is World Entrepreneur Day, and it goes hand in hand with our title of our book. And so again, we'll be working on book 2. We are working on book 2. We will be working towards the Preneur book launch very, very soon. In the meantime, I've got Vera next week, and then in a couple of weeks, I will have Antonio rounding out the 9 author interviews. So Russ, thank you for being with me today. It is always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Vince. Thanks for your time. And thank you, everybody who's listening. I mean, who'd have thought that people would log on to hear an argument about American English and English?
Hey, Russ, how many languages do you speak?
Barely one.
Yeah, me too. So we have that in common, my friend.
Well, do you know, Vince, I know you're trying to wrap it up, but how lucky are we? I mean, I'm in awe of, you know, it's like Jan speaks 4 or 5 languages, Vera speaks 4 or 5 languages, Edgar speaks 4 or 5 languages, and all of them speak English better than me.
I would agree with that.
And looking at their first drafts of their chapters, they write better English than me. Also, so I'll just leave that there. We're just so lucky to be surrounded by people that are so clever and gifted. And you know, I've got to say to you and the other authors, thank you for taking me on the journey, because this would have been a very, very strange year if I hadn't had you guys in my life. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Russ. Pleasure was definitely mine to have all of you in my life, and that's why I enjoy these interviews. And they're a lot of fun. They take a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, if you're having fun, that's what it's all about. So to our listeners, we'll see you next week. Russ, I'll see you Saturday.
Yes, absolutely.